Okay, it's Monday. It is June 8th. This is your Bring Me the News and Novak weather briefing. And we are talking about actually a fairly interesting here next 48 to 60 hours over the upper Midwest. And it's going to feature a lot of rain the way it appears for much of Minnesota and Wisconsin. Already some areas have gotten plenty of rain here in the last 24 to 48 hours, and I'll show you that. But yes, this is a wet period here coming up, especially for those in eastern Minnesota and Wisconsin and portions of eastern Iowa. This is the visible satellite loop right now. And I want you to focus on these clouds now that are starting to develop here over eastern South Dakota and central and northern Minnesota. This is at least the precursor now to what's going to be a large area of thunderstorm activity that should erupt here this evening, late afternoon and this evening, and no doubt that these storms are going to be slow movers. In fact, they may sit in one area, kind of like what you see these clouds doing right now. They're probably going to sit right in this area here and continually produce torrential rains over the next, probably 12-hour period here. And then I also want you to focus on what's happening down here in Arkansas, Mississippi, portions of Tennessee. That's Cristobal. That is Cristobal, the tropical now disturbance that is continually moving straight north towards the upper Midwest of all things. I cannot remember a time in my lifetime that I have been around that I've seen a tropical system track this far west. The track is going to be kind of something like this. So this is an anomaly. This is something that we're not used to, so don't be surprised if weird things happen here over the next 48 hours as this tropical system continues to push north and the moisture from that system continues to push north. Now, this is what we call the moisture channel or water vapor loop from the satellite out in space. Pretty obvious where Cristobal is located. Here it is. Over Arkansas, southern Missouri now, and then western Tennessee. Of course, here's Minnesota and the Twin Cities metro up here, and this moisture is moving straight north. No doubt about it, heading right for southeastern and eastern Minnesota and much of Wisconsin. So this is going to be a wet period coming up here starting tomorrow, probably tomorrow morning, and then lasting through portions of Wednesday. By the way, look at all the dry air right now just to the north of Cristobal. Which that's why we have clear skies over much of Minnesota, at least the eastern and southern portions of Minnesota and Wisconsin, is because there is dry air above us. And then here's, of course, the moisture now over the Dakotas and northwestern Minnesota. But Cristobal is a very interesting storm, wrapping up like this and heading straight north towards our region, and it is going to affect us. Okay, here are the temperatures now across the region, and it's hot. These are temperatures as of early this afternoon, now 93 in the Twin Cities with a dew point in the low 60s. So the dew point isn't really the issue. Yes, it's humid out there, but not not tropical. I wouldn't consider this oppressive. It's uncomfortable but not oppressive. Where it is oppressive up in the Red River Valley, where dew points are up near 70 degrees here, Bemidji 71, Fargo, Moorhead 69, Grand Forks, East Grand Forks 68. That's the dew point. And Roseau, by the way, extreme northwestern Minnesota, dew point of 73. That's where the moisture is right now. And of course, that's why we're expecting storms to fire out in this area later this afternoon and certainly this evening, as we should stay dry here in eastern Minnesota and western Wisconsin. But that's not going to be the case as we get into tomorrow. Again, let's just zoom in here, especially over southern and eastern Minnesota. Temperatures well into the 90s, low to mid 90s across all of southern and eastern Minnesota where you're getting sunshine, and that is boosting temperatures. Okay, now we're talking about the potential for flooding, and there are two areas that I'm really concerned about in the upper Midwest, and especially in Minnesota and Wisconsin. First of all, northwestern Minnesota. Look at all the rain that has fallen over the last 24 hours up in northwestern Minnesota. This would be areas such as Kitson County, Hallock, Minnesota, Roseau, Thief River Falls, Minnesota, even Crookston, Grand Forks, East Grand Forks, Fargo. All of these areas received well over an inch of rain over the last 24 hours. In some areas of northwestern Minnesota, we're talking in excess of 4 to 5 inches of rain, okay? And if we develop more thunderstorms in this area overnight tonight and into tomorrow morning, you can see why we're concerned about flooding up in the northwestern part of the state. Okay, next up, I'm concerned about flooding over southeastern Minnesota and western Wisconsin because this is the precipitation estimation over the last 2 months. Okay, you can see much of Minnesota, by the way, is dry. Look at this dry area across central Minnesota and much of northern Minnesota over the last couple of months. That's why I'm not too concerned. Even though they're going to get plenty of rain, likely in many of those areas of Minnesota, I'm not worried about flooding there because I think the soil can handle it. But these areas of western Wisconsin, northwestern Wisconsin, southeastern Minnesota, on over towards Green Bay in eastern Wisconsin, basically on a line from Mankato to the Twin Cities to Duluth, anywhere south and east of that line, that would be right about here. That's where I'm really concerned about flooding because not only has there been plenty of moisture over the last 2 months, but I'm also expecting moisture from Cristobal to move north into this part of Minnesota and Wisconsin. So that's something that we definitely need to keep an eye on. A lot of it has to do with the jet stream. This is the river of air at 30,000 feet. This is the NAM computer model guidance. And look at this jet streak now located over the Red River Valley and surging north into Canada. Now this is for tomorrow evening. This places southeastern, southern, and eastern Minnesota and much of Wisconsin in a favorable area for storm development because significant lift usually occurs at the right rear quadrant of a jet streak. Okay, so that would be right in that area. Hence the reason why the potential for torrential rains exist, especially with the heat that's around right now. No reason why we wouldn't expect some torrential rains over southern, eastern Minnesota and much of Wisconsin, again, as we get into especially tomorrow. Okay, one dry day, it appears today over southeastern Minnesota and western Wisconsin, and then we get into rain and heavy rains and some storms tomorrow. Here's the future radar from the NAM Nest computer model guidance, and look at how it's got much of the region dry today, but look at what happens as we go through the late afternoon and evening hours. Storms explode over northern and western Minnesota and eastern South Dakota. This is a fairly significant and large line of thunderstorms that develop by late evening, and they dump significant rains, no doubt, in that portion of the upper Midwest. And then watch what happens as we get into tomorrow. This is moisture from Cristobal now that is surging into southern and eastern Minnesota and western Wisconsin. And that's, again, look at some of the heavy showers, some of the torrential rain showers that are associated with that tropical moisture as we go through tomorrow afternoon and evening. And western Wisconsin really getting hammered, the way it appears, by this rain system, by this tropical system. We finally start to clear out Wednesday morning, and hopefully we can skirt this second area of moisture that develops over northeastern Iowa and southwestern Wisconsin on Wednesday. That remains to be seen, but still the verdict appears to be in. It looks like we are in for significant rains over southern and eastern Minnesota and much of Wisconsin over the next 48 hours. All right, here's the expected total precipitation here over the next 60 hours from the NAM Nest computer model guidance. And here you can see by tomorrow morning, the heavy rains are located over eastern South Dakota and about the northwestern half of Minnesota. And then as we go through the day tomorrow, here comes Cristobal's moisture surging north into eastern Minnesota and western Wisconsin, and no doubt some real heavy rains. In fact, look at some of these totals in excess of 5 to 6 inches over western Wisconsin. Yes, they are localized heavy rainfall and heavy showers that develop in that portion of Wisconsin, but still, some areas, even in eastern Minnesota, some areas, the NAM Nest computer model guidance is predicting well over 3 to 4 inches of rain in pockets over eastern Minnesota and western Wisconsin as we go through Tuesday and into early Wednesday morning. So this is something that we need to pay attention to, and we certainly shouldn't discount, is this idea of heavy rains, torrential rains over the next 48 hours across the upper Midwest. And then we finally clear out and dry out, by the way, as we get into later Wednesday and certainly the second half of this week. So that's the good news. Thank you for joining me for this Bring Me the News Novak Weather Update. I hope you have a great afternoon and evening.